been like fucking 6 months since I last did a Reddit video. I feel like I've forgotten what to do and how to do all this. Well, reading Reddit is finally back. How long for? I couldn't fucking tell you, to be honest. Today though, I'm on AskReddit, answering questions to what is the creepiest thing that has ever actually happened to you. I've got like 7 or something stories lined up. So yeah, I hope you enjoy. I went on a guided cemetery tour at night. About 6 or 7 of us were standing around a tomb listening to the story of how the inhabitant had killed himself with a gun, when all of a sudden there was a big flash and the whole sky lit up green with smaller flashes. We found out later that we had witnessed a meteor breaking up, so the tour guide takes a moment, recovers from the surprise, and continues his story about how some decades after the poor chap had killed himself, someone broke into his tomb and stole his skull. We then moved on, and walking further into the cemetery when we were startled by a loud bang. We shrugged it off as a car backfiring, laughed nervously at how on edge we were, and continued the tour. Shortly after, we hear a couple more bangs in a quick succession, and one of the tour party commented that they were pretty sure they were gunshots. There was another bang closer, definitely a gunshot. Then we saw a light in between some of the headstones, and I kid you not, we saw a figure of a man carrying a shotgun, slowly coming from the direction of the tomb we had just been at. We froze. I looked over to the tour guide, thinking it was some prank that he plays on all of his customers, but he was completely white and was backing away. It was a man with a shotgun, and he was walking towards us. He lifted a flashlight and pointed it directly at us. Several of us ducked behind the headstones as he yelled, "Get out of here, what the hell are you doing in this place?" Turns out the city council pays some guy to shoot possums in the cemetery, and they forgot to warn the tour company. Growing up, my mum was a bartender. She was a single parent, so I took care of my little brother most nights. One night while I was making dinner, I kept hearing a strange whistling sound, but I didn't think much of it because it was storming pretty hard outside. But the whistling continued, and it started to sound more like a melody than whistling from a storm. I started to get a little freaked out and asking my little brother if he was hearing it too. He wasn't. Eventually the whistling stops, but it's still storming pretty badly. Fast forward to the end of the night when I'm going to bed. I'm climbing up the ladder of my bunk bed and my TV shuts off. I think maybe the power went out, but the hallway light is still on. I try to turn it back on and nothing happens, so I reach around my TV stand and realise that it's been unplugged. At the same time, I hear the whistling, only this time it's not in the distance. It sounded like someone was whistling directly into my ear. I could almost feel their breath. It sent chills down my spine. It still sends chills down my spine. At that moment, I took off running out of our house, screaming. We lived in an apartment with 3 other units, so I woke up the neighbours above us. They were a younger couple with 2 kids and offered to come check out our house. I could tell at the time the guy thought I was just a stupid kid hearing things, but was trying to make me feel better. My brother and I waited outside of our apartment while he went inside to check it out for us. After a few minutes, he came back and seemed a little agitated and asked if we were playing a prank on him. This really scared me, and I told him we weren't playing a prank on him. He could probably see we were telling the truth by our faces, because I could see the fear roll over his face. He said he looked everywhere and did not find anyone, but was convinced someone was in our home. They invited us to stay in their apartment until my mum was home from work, because I didn't feel comfortable with us staying alone. I never heard the whistling again, but so many other strange things happened to my brother and me in that apartment. I'm convinced it was haunted. I'm not sure if the story will be scary to any of you, but that was the most terrified I've ever been in my life. As I read through these, I just know someone's going to make a comment about how fast I talk. I'm aware I talk quickly, alright? I can't do anything about it. I don't know why I speak this way. I've tried fixing it. It doesn't fucking work. Please just let me live. I had just got a job as a nanny looking after 2 kids for a family. I worked the same hours every week, one of the shifts being from 3 PM until around 10 on Friday nights. Across the road from the family's home was a construction site which I walked past every day. The builders would wave and say hello to me in the mornings and evenings, but one took a particular interest in me. He was at least 20 years older than me and often said comments that would make me feel uncomfortable. Every morning on my way to work he would yell out compliments to me, and in the evenings he would offer me a lift home in his van. I always declined. Although I felt uncomfortable, I never really felt unsafe, until one day he approached me on the street. When I turned to walk away after he said something particularly vulgar, he grabbed my arm harshly and said, "Don't you dare walk away from me." From then on, I was a little more wary of him. The house that the family live in is a 2-storey home with all the bedrooms and bathrooms upstairs, and the living area and kitchen downstairs. The downstairs area is surrounded by floor-to-ceiling glass windows. So one night after the kids were in bed, I was upstairs. Now, I admit I was having a bit of a snoop in the parents' room, so I was listening carefully to any signs of them arriving home, as they were due back early tonight. While upstairs, I heard a noise, which sounded like the gate. I peeked out a window that overlooked the front yard, just in time to see a black sports bag be thrown over the high fence. After the sports bag came a bat and then a man. It took me a couple of seconds to register what was happening, until I realised that the man was the builder. I completely froze, I watched him walk across the yard down to the side of the house, and then all the lights cut out. I had no idea what to do. My phone was downstairs, and due to all the windows there was no way I could get it without being seen. The only way out of the house was downstairs. I could hear him walking around the house, rattling windows and trying door handles. I was trying to figure out what to do when I hear a car come down the driveway. The parents had arrived home. I hid upstairs with the baby until I heard them come inside and call my name. I ran downstairs hysterically and the police were called. The guy was never found and I never saw him again. They tried to track him down through the building site, but they were very tight-lipped about who worked there. Looks like they were dealing with a lot of shady and unlicensed people coming in and out of there. The thing I learned from this experience is the importance of breaking up your routine whenever you can. I would catch the same bus at the same time every day, get off at the same stop, go to the same grocery store every morning and walk the same way to work. I believe this helped the man figure out where I would be at what time. I don't let myself think what might have happened if they did not arrive home when they did. And this is why I don't fucking babysit anymore, Jesus Christ. I used to work tables in a restaurant. One day, this guy I've never interacted with before comes to me and hands me a framed picture, smiling nervously. I look at it and it's a picture of me at the staff table. I was done eating and staring at nothing, probably thinking about something deep and clever. Yeah, unlikely though. I look at the guy. He explains timidly that he found me so pretty that he took my picture and framed it so I would see how pretty I was and hold on to it forever. Sweet gesture, but kinda creepy. 5 seconds later, the manager walks by, hears the story, bursts out laughing and decides this is perfect, just perfect, and hangs up the frame in the back, on the wall next to the work schedules, in a place where everyone that works here looks at practically every day. He thought it was hilarious. Everybody had a laugh, then we kind of forgot about it. The picture became a part of the wall. It's been 8 years since I've worked there. The staff changed, the managers changed. Over the years, everybody I knew changed jobs and everything. But my best work friend still remains. You know, the one person that could probably do another job better for her, but stays in this place by pure force of habit. The one person that will always be there and still work there 20 years after you've moved on. She decided to keep the picture. She told the new managers that the girl on the wall was a waitress that worked here and died in an accident. And the whole staff decided to frame her picture and honour her or whatever to keep her memory alive because she loved this place so much. You get the kind of stuff. Yep, 8 years later, when I occasionally visit the restaurant to say hello to my friend, I have a quick glance above the schedules. The picture's still there. A few years ago, I lived with my brother. I was 22, he was 29. One day I got home and was the first one home. I go upstairs and take a brief nap, maybe 30 minutes. I wake up from hearing some general commotion downstairs. I change clothes, watch a little TV, all while assuming it's my brother. I hear him come up the stairs halfway, pause about 10 seconds, then go back downstairs. I thought it was odd, and so I decided to go down there and see what's up. As I stand up, I look out the window to see him pulling in the driveway. I go into what the fuck mode, and go into my closet where I had my hunting shotgun and look for shells. At this point, I hear my brother walk in the front door, and I decide to just go down with an empty gun. As I hit the bottom of the steps, he sees and hears me clamouring, and his face just goes, what the fuck? And he yells, out front. So we both run out front, but don't see anyone running away. He runs back in to get himself a gun and shells for me, and we search the property. Turns out when he walked in the house, he walked past the basement door, and someone came up right after he walked by and they booked out the front door. When he saw me bounding down the stairs with a gun in my hands, he immediately knew what was up. Freaked us both out, but nothing was missing. I was 17, still living in my parents' house. Everyone was away on a Friday night, so I had a few friends over. We smoked a little and were chilling in the basement playing video games. 2 of my friends ran upstairs to get some snacks out of the pantry. After a few seconds, they came running down the steps yelling my name. They say somebody had just pulled into my driveway. I hear the dog start freaking out. I panic, thinking my parents are home, and I scramble to hide the weed and pipe we had sitting next to the back door. I walked up the steps and looked out the window. There was no car in the driveway, but my dog was still freaking out. I went outside to see if anyone was there. It was late, almost midnight, and cold. I was barefoot and poorly dressed. I walked around the house, shivering and nervous, and found nothing. I went back inside, took my dog down to the basement with me, and tried to relax. Maybe 20 minutes later, we hear a huge crashing sound. It sounded like something had exploded right in front of the house. We ran outside through the back door and saw a car wrapped around a tree right by the road in my neighbour's front yard. My dog starts freaking out again. It was my brother's car. My brother had gone with my parents to my aunt's and left his car in the garage. I ran to look inside and there was nobody in it. I immediately called my brother, freaking out. When he answered the phone, I was both relieved and confused. He instructed me to call the police. He came home. The police came and looked around. They took statements from everybody. We hid the fact we were high pretty well. As the tow truck was pulling my brother's car out the front yard, the police received a call about a break-in down the street. They left an officer with us, and the rest left to respond to the call. It turns out that a group of people were going through my neighbourhood, breaking into houses and stealing cars out of garages. I was in the house when the burglar stole my brother's car. I may have even walked right past him at one point. When they caught the group, one of the guys was injured as if he had been in a car wreck. He was the one who had broken into my house. I knew him. He had graduated from my high school when I was a freshman. He had house sat for us. He knew where we kept the spare keys. He knew that if one of us was home that the doors would be unlocked, and he waited until it was just me alone in the house. It wasn't paranormal, but it still creeps me out to this day that the guy had waited for myself or any of my other family members to be alone in the house and had broken in. It scares me that I was so completely unaware of my surroundings back then, that I would have let that guy get the drop on me if he had hostile intentions. It makes me sick that somebody we trusted to stay in our house while we were gone would come back a couple years later and do something like that. I've got loads of stories, but this is the only one that still freaks me out. I used to work as a slot repair tech in an Indian casino that was super haunted. It was a community centre thing where they held viewings and wakes or whatever before it was a casino. When I was first hired, there was confusion on when the employee I was replacing was going to officially retire, so I had to spend a month working in the kitchen. I had a radio that was on at all times that I used to tell the employees when their lunches were ready. I'd only been working there for about 3 weeks, and a few little odd things happened, like finding a freezer door open I knew I'd shut, or the sink being on with no employees seemingly around to do it. On that day it was incredibly slow, and I decided to close the order window and take my lunch a little early. I tried calling over the radio to my manager to let them know 3 or 4 times, but every time I would key up, the radio would buzz and whine loudly. I eventually gave up and just picked up on the phone to call a manager, but the line was completely dead. So I finally just leaned out the window and waved a supervisor down to let her know. I locked up the kitchen and took my break, which was about 20 minutes long. When I came back to the kitchen, everything was super quiet. Usually there would be customers waiting for me, but since there weren't, I decided to stock the bread shelves. I walked across the kitchen towards the storage hall and heard as clear as day the voice of the supervisor I told about my break say, "You shouldn't have gone." I turned and said what, but I didn't see her, so I walked around the corner to see if she was standing around the other side of the kitchen, but she wasn't there. As soon as I realised I was alone in the kitchen, the radio keyed up with a buzzing whine and let out a shrill sound like if you key up 2 radios too close to each other. I ran over and shut the radio off and looked out the order window, and there was no one around. I immediately went to the door to try and find someone nearby, and the large walk-in freezer door in the storage hall across the kitchen swung wide open. I don't know if you've ever been in a walk-in freezer, but those doors are super heavy. I immediately left the kitchen and told my supervisor I wasn't going back in there. I ended up serving drinks on the floor for the rest of the day, and the kitchen stayed closed until the next shift came in. All of my managers were super convinced of the ghost in the casino. The ceiling had a ton of those black dome security cameras, and they swore that they had all at one time or another looked up and seen the ghost behind them in the reflection. Some members of the pool team had actually quit over a lady in the cameras. I was happy to get out of the kitchen a week later. Why is it every Reddit video I film, I start losing my voice at the end of it? Like, why does this happen? Why am I losing my voice? I barely fucking read anything. Well, I hope you enjoyed those stories and you're happy Reading Reddit is back. If you're not, sorry, I don't know what to tell you if that's the case. But yeah, my socials are linked below, and I'll see you whenever I next see you.